All right, good evening. I'm Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse talking about the latest with Hurricane Francine. Just became a hurricane within the last hour. It was a tropical storm all of Tuesday, but now maximum winds up to 75 miles an hour. The storm is strengthening, and you can see that on the satellite imagery, looking more impressive this evening. Maximum wind 75 miles an hour, pressure down to 982 millibars, and moving to the northeast at 10 miles an hour. Main issue with this storm system so far has been the dry air, but it looks like the system is starting to overcome it. Let's dive into the details. So here's the satellite imagery as I was just talking about. Radar showing what is trying to be an eye on radar off of the Texas coast. Hurricane warnings are out for Louisiana, and a good cluster of showers moving into Louisiana already. I think that's going to be one of the main issues with this storm system, is we're likely to see multiple inches of rain. Storm surge possible in southern Louisiana. I've seen some projections 5 to 10 feet. But rainfall already beginning in New Orleans and parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, even stretching into southern Alabama. The satellite picture with water vapor. So the water vapor showing the dry air this system is going to run into. Good moisture flow into Louisiana and Mississippi right now. But look at that bone dry air stretching from Texas into Indiana. Indiana, it's been a nice last couple of days. It's because of the dry air we've had in place. And this dry air will factor into our forecast going forward, especially as we're starting to look forward toward Friday into the weekend. The system will be moving into that dry air as well as slowing down. So the current track from the National Hurricane Center, this is the new track at 8 o'clock, and what they are projecting. Again, it was maximum winds at 75 miles an hour right now with the latest update. System moves into Louisiana. We're talking tomorrow, later on in the day, probably late afternoon into the evening hours, as a borderline Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane. Latest projection just off the coast has it at maximum winds at 90 miles an hour. I wouldn't be shocked if this does reach Category 2 status just because of the warmer water it's in. And 90 miles an hour is not that far off from Category 2 status. Continues inland into Mississippi, weakens, and then the big question for the Ohio River Valley, Indiana, is the storm system and where it stalls out. Let's zoom into the track. The track, again, takes it inland into southern Louisiana. Center of the track right now is Baton Rouge. In New Orleans, you can't let your guard down too far just yet. You're on the east side of the cone. But usually with these tropical systems, the dirty side, the east side, that's where you see some of the stronger winds, heavier rains, and even the potential for severe weather. So New Orleans, you aren't out of the woods yet. System continues into Mississippi. Jackson at the center of the cone, potentially as the storm's weakening from a tropical storm to a tropical depression. And then further north, Ohio River Valley, the system likely weakening, and then our models start to have it all over the place, either continuing north, stalling out, moving further south. A lot of questions with where it goes as it's moving further inland. May start to take on a beating from the dry air we also have in place. Let's talk Futurecast with our latest projection on Futurecast. Now, I do want to point out, look how organized the system is coming onshore Wednesday. As it continues to the north, starts to lose some steam, and when it runs into that dry air, we'll be in the process of falling apart a touch. So rainfall amounts, it's going to be tricky for us in Indiana, even into parts of Illinois, timing this out. We'll go into Friday where the rain chances will be beginning in some of these locations. And with all that dry air we have locked in place, shredding this system apart a touch, we'll have those showers starting to arrive. Best chance of rain will be southern Indiana, and that's where we could see an inch plus. System then just stays in our area and lingers around through parts of the weekend. The weekend rain chances are looking lower than what we're expecting for Friday. Friday's likely the best chance of rain in this forecast. Let's talk rainfall numbers. This is out from the Weather Prediction Center, and I sort of agree with this mark just looking through all our weather models this evening. Areas in Louisiana and stretching through Mississippi, 3+ is easily on the table. I'd be eyeing closer to 8 inches of rain in some of these spots. And then as it continues northward, getting closer to Indiana, that's where it starts to get more uncertain, because if the system is still moving forward and it has some of its rain bands intact as it's battling the dry air. We could see some higher amounts. But right now, the light blue shading you see, that's over an inch, and that creeps into southern Indiana. Northern Indiana may not see much from this storm system. Let me see if I can dive into our rainfall amounts across the state. So this is the forecast I put out this evening, and still time for this to shift around, but higher confidence in the southern tip of Indiana getting an inch of rain. I'd say medium confidence from south of I-70, even further south of I-70, including Bloomington and Columbus, and then a low-end chance, basically Indianapolis, north of I-70, including much of central Indiana. So this is not going to be a slam dunk heavy rain chance. You do remember, I believe it was a couple months ago, it was July. We had Beryl, the remnants of Beryl, move into the area, and that was a slam dunk. The system never fell apart, and those rain chances survived all the way into Indiana. We also had a couple tornadoes that day from that storm system. Not specifically eyeing a severe chance just yet, but wouldn't be shocked if we're added to some risk going forward. Again, it's probably not the risk we're going to see, or we did see from Beryl. There is a severe storm risk as Francine is coming on shore tomorrow, and that's for Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Again, always looking to the east side of these storm systems where you could get a couple quick spin-up tornadoes. It's usually the main threat. Beryl certainly produced a good amount of tornadoes. I believe it was in Texas, Arkansas, some in Indiana, even a surprise little outbreak in New York from this storm system. So currently what we know from this storm system as we start to wrap up this YouTube forecast, Francine is expected to move north. Dry air is going to be the biggest battle with the system moving forward, especially as it starts to drip up the Mississippi River. It comes into contact with Indiana, or gets close, but running into that drier air. Areas south in the southern tip of Indiana have the highest chance of seeing an inch plus of rain, but that's not a guarantee. Again, it's going to be where this system, those heavier rain bands set up. I'm just going to wrap up by showing that path just once more, which is new from the National Hurricane Center as of Tuesday evening. Has the system strengthening into a strong end Cat 1, potentially a weak end Cat 2, before it makes landfall in Louisiana tomorrow, later on in the afternoon and evening hours, continuing through Mississippi. System weakens, eventually becomes a remnant low, and then we're tracking potentially rain chances here in Indiana Friday into the weekend. Thanks for tuning in to this YouTube broadcast. I hope to do more on YouTube going forward, so I do appreciate any likes or subscribes to the channel. And I hope everyone has a good Tuesday evening. We will be tracking Francine all the way through the end of the week.